is that old lady?" After 4 years, I returned to my family home. In front of the entrance, I noticed a woman crouching among the shrubs, pulling weeds. The elderly woman had completely gray hair and was extremely thin, clearly different in build from my mom. She noticed my presence and turned around, revealing her face, and I was shocked. It was none other than my 35-year-old sister-in-law, Catherine.
Well, actually,
When she explained the reason, I was furious, and I decided to take revenge on those people. I disappeared with Catherine, leaving the household in chaos. Please listen to the dramatic series of events I went through. Children don't get to choose their parents. With that thought, I spent my childhood, and now I'm 35 myself. After getting married, I lived far from my parents' home, near my husband Tom's family, with him and our 10-year-old daughter, May. Tom and his parents were, of course, very kind, and life felt like a dream. The truth is, my name is Amy. I wasn't raised with much love from my family. My parents doted solely on my older brother, Evan, who is 2 years older than me.
Evan looks just like me, with such a handsome face. Compared to him, Amy's plain. I wonder who she takes after.
My mom constantly criticizes my appearance while showering Evan with compliments.
Once a daughter gets married, she's gone. It's a waste of money to raise her.
My dad would say that too, and refused to spend money on me. Evan took advantage of this, shamelessly asking our parents for anything he wanted while I got only hand-me-downs. What's more, whenever he broke a dish or messed something up, he would smirk and say, "Amy did it," and blame me. No matter how much I tried to explain, they wouldn't listen and scolded me harshly, saying, "It's Amy's fault." In those moments, I would escape to my grandmother's room and cry. She had trouble walking and often stayed in her room, using a cane. Grandma was the only person who truly cared about me.
Amy, you're a kind and good girl. You'll definitely be happier than anyone.
She comforted me with those words like a spell. She even secretly slipped me some spending money from time to time. The house was in my grandmother's name, and there were savings left by my grandfather. Since my parents received financial help from her, they couldn't go against her wishes, so they reluctantly lived with her. Even in such a situation, I often felt hurt at home, but I had resigned myself to it, thinking that I couldn't choose my parents. On the other hand, I had many friends at school, and I was especially close to Catherine, my best friend, throughout elementary, middle, and high school. She lost her parents early on and was raised by her grandparents, which made her situation somewhat similar to mine, as I relied heavily on my grandmother. Catherine, who grew flowers with her grandmother, knew a lot about them and taught me many things. Catherine was beautiful, fair-skinned, and gentle, while I was the leader type and a bit of a tomboy. We were very different, yet we got along incredibly well. But then, something unexpected happened. In high school, when Catherine came over to visit, Evan fell in love with her at first sight.
actually, Evan asked me out. I think I'm going to say yes.
I felt conflicted seeing how happy she was and gently tried to warn her. I don't really want to say this, but Evan has a pretty difficult personality.
Don't worry about that. Everyone has flaws, and I can change him.
Though I was hesitant, I thought that maybe with her kindness and patience, she could actually do it. After Evan's persistent efforts, the two of them got married, and my best friend, Catherine, became my sister-in-law. At that time, I was already married, but I stayed with my grandmother at my parents' house for a while because I worried about leaving her alone. However, just when Evan got married, Tom was transferred for work and we had to move. I was unsure about leaving my grandmother behind and moving away from home.
I'm fine and still strong. Don't let your own happiness slip away. Go with Tom.
My grandmother encouraged me so warmly.
Amy, I'm here too. Don't worry. Leave taking care of Grandma to me.
It seemed that Evan, as the eldest son, had decided to live with my parents after getting married, and Catherine offered to take care of my grandmother as well. With their encouragement, I decided to move to Tom's new assignment location, but I was still worried about Grandma, so I made it a point to visit my parents' house once or twice a year.
It's all thanks to Catherine.
Even after turning 90, my grandmother remained cheerful, and she and Catherine had become very close.
It's like they're best friends or something. Well, I never wanted to do any caregiving anyway, so it's fine.
I noticed my parents giving a wry smile as they watched the two of them, but at least Grandma seemed happy, and that was enough to put my mind at ease. Around that time, Tom's mom fell ill, and I began helping out with things at his parents' place. Because of that, my life became quite hectic, and before I knew it, 4 years had passed without visiting my parents' home. I did call Grandma occasionally, and she seemed to be doing well, which was a relief. But one day,
Well, I'm getting on in years, so anything could happen at any time. There's just one thing I want to tell you, Amy.
my grandmother started saying something that caught my attention. "Grandma, don't say such ominous things. I'll be there to visit as soon as things settle down." But in the end, that conversation was the last one I had with her. A few days later, I got a call from Catherine saying that my grandmother had passed away peacefully in her sleep.
Amy's worried about me, so don't tell her.
It seemed that when she became unwell, Grandma had asked Catherine to keep it from me. I hadn't known a thing, and the sudden news left me in shock. I deeply regretted not visiting her more often. Fortunately, Tom's mom's condition had stabilized, so we decided to leave our daughter with his parents and attend her funeral together. After 4 years, I made my way back to my family home, and as I opened the gate, I saw a woman crouched in front of the entrance, pulling weeds among the shrubs. "Who is that old lady?" It was just her back, but she was an elderly woman I didn't recognize. Her hair was completely gray, and she was very thin, clearly different in build from my mom. And on the day of the funeral, no less. Why would she be pulling weeds? Then, as if sensing my presence, she suddenly turned around. I took a good look at her face and was stunned. It was none other than my sister-in-law, Catherine. "Catherine, what happened to you?"
Amy. Oh, you're asking about my hair? Well, it's a long story.
Catherine seemed reluctant to explain, but I took her to a nearby park and coaxed her into telling me what had happened. It was clearly strange for someone as beautiful and young as her to have changed so drastically in just 4 years.
Well, actually,
As I listened to Catherine's story, my whole body burned with anger. This is unforgivable. I decided to seek revenge on those responsible, and I convinced Catherine to join me in planning it. Later, when we returned to the house together, my parents and Evan greeted us coldly.
You could have just sent flowers. No need to come all this way. Let me guess, you're after Grandma's inheritance? Well, you're not getting a dime now that you're married off.
"I'm not here for that. I just came to say goodbye to Grandma." Even though I was grieving, the first thing they mentioned was money. Evan hadn't changed at all. I held my tongue and bit my lip, but then my mom started yelling at Catherine.
Catherine, are you done pulling the weeds yet? We don't want to be embarrassed when people come to pay their respects. Once you're done, get the drinks and sweets ready for the guests.
It was obvious from her behavior that she'd been treating Catherine like a maid. It was likely that the stress and exhaustion had caused Catherine to look so worn down. It broke my heart to see what she had endured just because she had married into our family. But Evan showed not a shred of concern for her well-being. On the contrary, they said something that I could hardly believe.
To save as much money as possible, we're just going to hold a simple ceremony for Grandma at home. You two better hurry up and get everything ready.
And you know, that old woman sure lived a long time, didn't she?
I was appalled by their insensitive words, even though they were my own family. Still, for the sake of my grandmother, Catherine and I worked hard together to prepare for the funeral. As we did, I overheard a conversation between Evan and my parents, sounding quite pleased.
Now we can pay off our debts with Grandma's money.
With the inheritance coming in, we can live in luxury from now on.
Their joy over my grandmother's passing filled me with anger, and my clenched fists began to shake. In the midst of this, the relatives arrived and the funeral began. But suddenly, Evan and my parents shifted their behavior, putting on a show of grief.
I took care of her all this time, and now she's suddenly gone. It's too soon.
Grandma, I wish we could have had more time together.
Their performance was so convincing that even the relatives were moved to tears. I watched them with a cold, disapproving gaze. I won't let you get away with this. After the prayers, I took out a voice recorder from my bag and started playing a recording.
Thank you all for coming to my funeral today, even though you must be very busy.
To everyone's surprise, the gentle, calm voice was my grandmother's. My family and the gathered relatives looked bewildered and shocked. In fact, before she passed, my grandmother had shown me where she hid the voice recorder and asked me to play it during her funeral. So, before the guests arrived, I went to her room and secretly retrieved it. There was more to my grandmother's message.
The only ones who were kind to me were Amy and Catherine. The rest of the family, who lived with me, only cared about my assets. After Amy got married, Catherine took care of everything for me. Evan and his parents pushed all the housework onto her while they wasted money however they pleased.
Her confession continued. The relatives began to murmur, "Is that true? And that's just awful." The atmosphere changed instantly, and my family scrambled to cover up their actions.
Grandma was old. Everything she said must be delusional.
Yes, Amy and Catherine must have plotted this for the inheritance.
That's right.
My dad joined in, echoing Evan and my mom. They tried desperately to put the blame on us, but I ignored them and played another recording.
Old hag, hurry up and die already.
Catherine is just a caregiver. Once we don't need her anymore, we'll kick her out.
Then my mom's voice followed Evan and my dad's words.
A wife who can't even have children is useless.
The cruel remarks echoed through the funeral hall. The relatives turned on Evan and my parents, demanding, "What were you thinking?" as my family frantically tried to calm them down. I watched this scene unfold with the detached expression. I have no more ties to this house. Amid the chaos, Tom, Catherine, and I quietly left the house, carrying my grandmother's urn without anyone noticing. A few days later, My phone rang incessantly with calls from my family, but I ignored every one of them. The next day, Evan and my mom showed up unannounced at my doorstep. They barged in without waiting for an invitation, speaking rapidly without giving me a chance to respond.
Grandma's bank account was empty. Catherine must have taken the money. Bring her here right now.
And the real estate agent came and told us to vacate the house immediately. What's going on?
Why don't you ask Grandma's lawyer? I suggested, but they remained furious, their brows furrowed, refusing to leave.
Amy, you know something, don't you? We're on to you. Tell us the truth right now.
I crossed my arms and glared at the two of them, exasperated by their selfish demands. Honestly, I didn't want anything more to do with those people. Yes, they were right. I knew the whole truth. The truth is, according to Catherine, Grandma was so disappointed in the family for forcing all the housework and caregiving on her while treating her poorly that she encouraged Catherine to leave and find freedom. But Catherine insisted on staying by Grandma's side until the very end. So, Grandma called her lawyer, arranged to adopt Catherine legally, and then began preparations for a living inheritance. She sold the house and land, and the agreement was that the house would be vacated after her passing. In reality, she had been living there as a tenant after the sale. The rest of the family had no idea that most of Grandma's assets were arranged to go to Catherine, and she left me a bundle wrapped in newspaper as a keepsake.
I don't care about some bundle of newspapers. Just give us our money and property right now.
There isn't any. This is the consequence of not treating Grandma well.
What did you say? Fine, then I'll just stay married to Catherine. Send her back home immediately.
I was utterly disgusted by Evan's arrogance and greed. At that moment, the door to the next room slowly opened.
I refuse to be used by you any longer. I'm definitely getting a divorce.
The voice came from Catherine, who stood there with a resolute expression, staring directly at Evan and my mom. Evan and my mom were taken aback by the change in her demeanor.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Without the money you have, we're doomed.
As it turned out, Evan had squandered Grandma's expected inheritance on his affair, leaving him deep in debt and unable to move forward. Desperately, he clung to Catherine, shouting his self-centered excuses.
I put up with everything only because of Grandma. I've been done with you for a long time. If you keep pushing, I'll take legal action.
Catherine firmly rejected him, muttering to herself, "From now on, I'll live my own life." Then my mom turned to me, spitting her words as she barked out orders.
Amy, you're the daughter, so it's your duty to help your parents. Tell Catherine to give us her money. Hurry.
My family is Grandma and Catherine. That's it. You always favored Evan and never cared about me. I'll never forget what you did.
Wait, no, that's not true. I'm sorry for everything. Please, I'm begging you, help us.
I was wrong too. Just do something, please.
If you keep harassing us, I'll report you to the police. I ignored their pleas and spoke firmly. Then, as Evan and my mom cried and screamed, refusing to leave, I shoved them out of the house and slammed the front door shut. After that, Catherine divorced Evan. She demanded alimony of $30,000 from him for the infidelity and mistreatment she endured. Additionally, she tracked down his mistress and demanded $10,000 in compensation. The mistress, a young woman from a pub, borrowed money to pay up and quickly broke things off with Evan. As for Evan and my parents, they were left with huge debts and were evicted from the family property. Now they live in a rundown shack near a factory, constantly hounded by debt collectors, working day and night to survive. On the other hand, Catherine used the inheritance Grandma left her to open a flower shop near my home. She dyed her hair a beautiful chestnut brown and returned to her former, radiant self, thriving in her new business. Since then, we've been meeting often, enjoying life like we did back in high school. Oh, I almost forgot to mention what Grandma left me. Inside that newspaper bundle were a large gemstone and a luxury watch. Grandma had purchased them with her savings as gifts for me. She wrapped them in newspaper to keep them from attracting attention, a thoughtful gesture to protect the valuable items.
If you ever find yourself in trouble, sell these. Amy, you're my treasure.
There was even a letter with those words. Even after her passing, I can still feel her love, and it's like she's watching over me from nearby.